How people really lived 10,000 years ago. When people picture life 10,000 years ago, they often imagine cave people grunting in the dark. That picture is mostly wrong. By then, humans were fully modern. They joked, planned, argued, taught children, cared for relatives, and understood their landscapes deeply. But they did not all live one way. 10,000 years ago was not a single lifestyle. It was a turning point. In some places, people still moved through the seasons, following fish, animals, nuts, roots, berries, and weather. In other places, especially parts of Southwest Asia, people were settling into villages, storing food, and experimenting with cultivation. This was not the sudden invention of farming. It was more like a long human negotiation with plants, climate, hunger, and opportunity. A family might harvest wild grain one season, hunt gazelle another, gather pistachios, fish a river, and tend useful plants near camp. Survival was not random. It was knowledge, where water hid, when seeds ripened, which stones made blades, which paths were safe. A day could begin with grinding seeds, repairing baskets, checking traps, shaping tools, collecting firewood, or walking to a known patch of food. Stone tools were not crude mistakes. A good blade, scraper, needle, or grinding stone took skill, memory, and careful hands. Clothing was likely practical and repaired often. Skins, woven fibers, cords, beads, and fasteners. Shaped by climate more than fashion, homes varied. Some people used temporary shelters. Others lived in round or oval houses made with mud, stone, wood, reeds, and plaster. The word village can make this sound cozy. But early settled life had trade-offs. More storage, more neighbors, more waste, more disease risk. Staying put helped people keep grain, tools, and children in one place. It also meant defending supplies from pests, weather, and other people. Food was seasonal, and scarcity was real. But this was not constant starvation. Many communities had broad diets and flexible routines. Before supermarkets, variety came from skill. Seeds, tubers, fruit, shellfish, birds, fish, eggs, game, honey, and anything local people knew how to use. Dogs were already part of human life. They could warn, hunt, scavenge, travel, and sit near the fire like old partners in a new world. Children were not just hidden indoors. They learned by watching how to track, gather, cook, carry, make, remember, and belong. Elders mattered because memory mattered. In a world without writing, a person who remembered droughts, trails, plants, and stories was a living archive. There was no money, no state, no police, and no written law. But that does not mean there were no rules. Reputation, kinship, sharing, obligation, marriage, ritual, and gossip could hold a group together, as strongly as any official system. People also traveled farther than we might expect. Shells, stone, pigments, and ideas moved between groups through exchange, marriage, visits, and gatherings. Those gatherings were not just practical, they were social. People sang, danced, competed, mourned, flirted, made alliances, and told stories. At places like Gobekli Tepe, hunter-gatherer communities built monumental stone structures. Before cities, writing, metal tools, or full farming economies. That should shake the old ladder in our heads. First survival, then farming, then culture. Culture was already there. Art and ritual were not decoration after the important work. They were part of how people made meaning, handled death, and remembered who they were. Death was close. Childbirth was dangerous, infections could turn serious, and an injury that looks small today could change a life. But care was also real. Archaeology repeatedly shows that ancient people supported the sick, buried the dead, and made grief visible. The biggest change was climate. After the Ice Age, the world warmed, coastlines shifted, forests spread, and familiar animal routes changed. Humans responded the way humans always do, by improvising. Some moved, some settled, some stored, some cultivated. Most mixed strategies. So the Neolithic transition was not a clean upgrade from primitive to civilized. It was a messy experiment with benefits and costs. Farming eventually fed more people. But early farming could also mean harder repetitive work, narrower diets, crowding, and new inequalities. 10,000 years ago, the future was not obvious. Nobody knew their experiments with grain and goats would lead to cities, empires, taxes, and paperwork. To them, life was immediate. Weather, children, hunger, tools, fire, stories, relatives, strangers, animals, spirits, and the next season. They were not us in costumes, and they were not a simpler species. They were people solving human problems with the world they had. The real surprise is not how different they were. It is how much of us was already there before history had even learned to write. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more explained history.